Hare Krishna. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Bhakti Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Bhakti Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodhanandana Vrajajanarandana. Yasodhanandana Vrajajanarandana. Yasodhanandana Vrajajanarandana. Yamunatira Vanachami. Yamunatira Vanachami. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jai Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Haribol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nita Gora Haribol, 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 Haribol. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Hari ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande Hari 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 Bol. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswati vyasa tato jayudiraye nastapayashu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavate yutamashloke bhakti bhavati naistake. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 29. Let's do the word for word first. Maitreya Uvacha. The great sage Maitreya replied, Mata of his mother, Sa Patnya of the co-wife, Vak Banai by the arrows of harsh words, Ridhi in the heart, Viddah pierced, Tu then, Tan all of them, Smaran remembering, Na not, Aichat desired, Mukti Pate from the Lord, whose lotus feet give liberation. Muktim, salvation. Tasmat, therefore. Tapam, grief. Upaivan, he suffered. Maitreya Uvacha, Mata sapatneya vagbanayin riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan matah sapnya vagbanair riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan mato sapnya vagbanair riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan. Please repeat. Matre uvacha matu sapnya vagbanayin riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan. Matraya uvacha matu sapatnya vagbanayin riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan. Maitreya uvacha matu sapatnya vagbanair riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan. Mataji. Riya uvacha matu sapnya vagbanair riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan. Maitreya uvacha matuhu sapatnya vagbanair riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan. Maitreya uvacha matu sapatnya vagbanair riddhi vidastu tan smaran naichan mukti patir muktim tasmatapam upaivan. So we will again look at the word for word meaning. Maitreya uvacha. The great sage Maitreya replied, Matu, of his mother, Sapatnya, of the co-wife, Vak Banai, by the arrows of harsh words, Ridhi, in the heart, Vida, pierced, to, then, Tan, all of them, Smaran, remembering, na, not, aichat, desired, mukti pate, from the Lord, whose lotus feet give liberation, muktim, salvation, tasmat, therefore, tapam, grief, upeivan, he suffered. The translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the purport that follows. Maitreya answered, Dhruva Maharaj's heart, which was pierced by the arrows of harsh words of his stepmother, was greatly aggrieved. And thus, when he fixed upon his goal of life, he did not forget her misbehavior. He did not demand actual liberation from this material world. But at the end of his devotional service, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him, he was simply ashamed of the material demands he had in his mind. Please repeat. Maitreya answered, Dhruva Maharaj's heart, which was pierced by the arrows of the harsh words of his stepmother, was greatly aggrieved. And thus, when he fixed upon his goal of life, he did not forget her misbehavior. He did not demand actual liberation from this material world. But at the end of his devotional service, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him, he was simply ashamed of his material demands he had in his mind. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's a fairly long purport, so we'll read all of it, because who can say it better than Prabhupada? This important verse has been discussed by many stalwart commentators. Why was Dhruva Maharaj not pleased, even after achieving the goal of life he desired? A pure devotee is always free from any kind of material desires. In the material world, one's material desires are all most demonic. One thinks of others as one's enemies. One thinks of revenge against one's enemies. One aspires to become the topmost leader or topmost person in this material world. And thus one competes with all others. This has been described in Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, as asuric, divine and demonic. Right? That's the chapter. A pure devotee has no demand from the Lord. His only concern is to serve the Lord sincerely and seriously. And he is not at all concerned about what will happen in the future. In the Mukunda Mala Stotra, King Kulashekar, author of the book, states in his prayer, My dear Lord, I don't want any position of sense gratification within this material world. I simply want to engage in your service perpetually. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya in his Shikshastaka also prayed, My Lord, I do not want any amount of wealth. I do not want any number of materialistic followers. Nor do I want any attractive wife to enjoy. The only thing I want is that I may engage life after life in your service. Lord Chaitanya did not pray even for mukti or liberation. In this verse, Maitreya replied to Vidura that Dhruva Maharaj, influenced by a revengeful attitude towards his insulting stepmother, did not think of mukti, nor did he know what mukti was. Therefore, he failed to aim for mukti as his goal in life. But a pure devotee does not want liberation. He is a soul surrendered unto the Supreme Lord, and he does not demand anything from the Lord. This position was realized by Dhruva Maharaj when he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead present personally before him, because he was elevated to the Vasudev platform. The Vasudev platform refers to the stage at which material contamination is conspicuous by absence only, or in other words, where there is no question of the material modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and one can therefore see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because on the Vasudev platform, one can see God face to face. I'll repeat that. Because on the Vasudev platform, one can see God face to face, the Lord is also called Vasudev. Dhruva Maharaj's demand was for a position so exalted that it was never enjoyed even by Lord Brahma, his great-grandfather. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is so affectionate and kind towards his devotee, especially to a devotee like Dhruva Maharaj, who went to render devotional service in the forest alone at the age of only 5 years, that although the motive may be impure, the Lord does not consider the motive. He is concerned with the service. But if a devotee has a particular motive, the Lord directly or indirectly knows it, and therefore he does not leave the devotee's material desires unfulfilled. These are some of the special favors by the Lord to a devotee. Dhruva Maharaj was offered Dhruva Loka, a planet that was never resided upon by any conditioned soul. Even Brahma, although the topmost living creature within this universe, was not allowed to enter Dhruva Loka. Wherever there is a crisis within this universe, the demigods go to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, and they stand on the beach of the Milk Ocean. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Giri Govardhan ki jai, Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Hari ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the fulfillment of Dhruva Maharaj's demand, a position more exalted than that of even his great-grandfather Brahma, was offered to him. Here in this verse, the Lord is described as Mukti Pati, which means one under whose lotus feet there are all kinds of mukti. There are 5 kinds of mukti: Sayujya, Sharupya, Shalokya, Samipya, Shasti. Out of these 5 muktis, which can be achieved by any person engaged in devotional service to the Lord, the one that is known as Sayujya is generally demanded by Mayavadi philosophers. They demand to become one with the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord. In the opinion of many scholars, this Sayujya Mukti, although counted among the 5 kinds of Mukti, is not actually Mukti. Because from Sayujya Mukti, one may again fall down to this material world. This information we have from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:2-32, where it is said, Patantya Adha, which means they again fall down. The monist philosopher, after executing severe austerity, merges into the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. But the living entity always wants reciprocation in loving affairs. Therefore, although the monist philosophy is elevated to the status of being one with the effulgence of the Lord, because there is no facility for associating with the Lord and rendering service unto Him, he again falls into this material world. And his service propensity is satisfied by materialistic welfare activities like humanitarianism, altruism, and philanthropy. There are many instances of such fall downs, even for great sannyasis in the Mayavad school. Therefore, Vaishnava philosophers do not accept Sayujya Mukti to be within the category of Mukti. According to them, Mukti means transferal to the loving service of the Lord from one's position of serving Maya. Lord Chaitanya also says in this connection that the constitutional position of a living entity is to render service to the Lord. That is real Mukti. When one is situated in his original position, giving up artificial positions, he is called Mukta or liberated. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is confirmed. Anyone who engages in rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord is considered to be Mukta or Brahma Bhuta. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that a devotee is considered to be on the Brahma Bhuta platform when he has no material contamination. In the Padma Purana, this is also confirmed. Mukti means engagement in the service of the Lord. The great sage Maitreya explained that Dhruva Maharaj did not desire in the beginning to engage in the service of the Lord, but he wanted an exalted position better than his great grandfathers. This is more or less not service to the Lord, but service to the senses. Even if one gets the position of Brahma, the most exalted position in this material world, he is a conditioned soul. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati says that if one is elevated to real, pure devotional service, he considers even great demigods like Brahma and Indra to be on equal level with an insignificant insect. The reason is that an insignificant insect has desire for sense gratification. And even a great personality like Lord Brahma also wants to dominate the material nature. Sense gratification means domination over material nature. The whole competition between conditioned souls is based upon domination of this material nature. Modern scientists are proud of their knowledge because they're discovering new methods to dominate the laws of material nature. They think that this is the advancement of human civilization. The more they can dominate the material laws, the more advanced they think they are. Dhruva Maharaj's propensity in the beginning was like that. He wanted to dominate this material world in a greater position than Lord Brahma. Therefore, elsewhere it is described that after the appearance of the Lord, when Dhruva Maharaj thought and compared his determination to his final reward, he realized that he wanted a few particles of broken glass, but instead had received many diamonds. As soon as he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, he immediately became conscious of the unimportance of his demand from the Lord to have an exalted position better than Lord Brahma's. When Dhruva Maharaj became situated on the Vasudev platform, due to seeing the Lord face to face, all his material contamination was cleared. Thus he became ashamed of what his demands were and what he had achieved. He was very much ashamed to think that although he had gone to Madhuvan, giving up the kingdom of his father, and he had gotten a spiritual master like Narad Muni, he was still thinking of revenge against his stepmother and wanted to occupy an exalted position within this material world. These were the causes for his moroseness, even after he received all desired benedictions from the Lord. When Dhruva Maharaj factually saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there was no question of a revengeful attitude towards his stepmother, nor any aspiration to lord it over the material world. But the Supreme Personality is so kind that he knew Dhruva Maharaj wanted these. Speaking before Dhruva Maharaj, he used the word Vedaham, because when Dhruva Maharaj demanded material benefits, the Lord was present in his heart and so knew everything. The Lord always knows everything a man is thinking and a woman is thinking. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita also. Vedaham samatitani. The Lord filled all Dhruva Maharaj's desires. His revengeful attitude towards his stepmother and stepbrother was satisfied. His desire for a more exalted position than that of his great-grandfather was also fulfilled, and at the same time, his eternal position in Dhruva Loka was fixed. Although Dhruva Maharaj's achievement of an eternal planet was not conceived of by him, Krishna thought, what will Dhruva do with an exalted position in this material world? Therefore he gave Dhruva the opportunity to rule this material world for 36,000 years with unchangeable senses and the chance to perform many great sacrifices and thus become the most reputed king within this material world. And after finishing with all this material enjoyment, Dhruva would be promoted to the spiritual world, which includes Dhruva Loka. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Isha Avatarakan Tat Prakasham Tat Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samgikam. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Godadaya Pushpavanto Chitra Sandota Monodo Mukam Kuroti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. Really long purport, and sorry I had to subject you to my hoarse voice, but we have to read the whole purport. Sometimes, if there isn't much time, then devotees sometimes read a paragraph or two. But by reading the purport, you see how structured and how astute Srila Prabhupada's presentation is. Because he starts with a point, he builds the thread, and he concludes with that point. He emphasizes again how Dhruva Maharaj, although having his material desires, at the end they were fulfilled, but he also got the benefit of his devotional service. So here in this verse, it actually leads from Vidura's inquiry in text 28. So Vidura is inquiring from Maitreya Rishi. After Vidura had been insulted by Duryodhana in the palace, he left after trying so much to assist the Pandavas and Kauravas, but eventually the insults were too much. So Vidura left, and subsequently the Mahabharata war took place, but Vidura was on parikram, visiting all the holy tirthas. He even encountered Uddhava, and by then Mahabharata had been over, and they reminisced about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and in Dwaraka. And Uddhava then directed him to go to Maitreya Rishi and inquire further. So this conversation is going on, I think from Canto 2, Canto 3 onwards. Maitreya Rishi, Vidura, the conversation is going. And so Vidura is inquiring. The Maitreya Rishi, his position is very, very exalted because he's also a disciple of Parasara Muni and a contemporary of Vyasadeva. And in the Vishnu Purana, the conversation, Parasara Muni's conversation and Maitreya Rishi is recorded there, and that becomes the knowledge and information which Maitreya Rishi uses to discuss and answer Vidura in the Bhagavad Puran, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's a nice background to understand. So in the Bhagavatam, the different subject matters, right? And this is Atra Sarga Visargascha Sthanam Poshanam Utiya. These different subject matter, 10 subject matters. So we see there's creation, secondary creation, the discussions of all that which you have gone through in Bhagavatam up to now. But it's not necessarily that those subject matters are linked to each canto. The subject matters, those 10 subject matters are covered in each canto. And here we see we are learning about protection. Sthanam, Poshanam, protection. How Dhruva is protected by the Lord. So these different subject matters are covered. So here in the text 28, Vidura asks, my dear Brahmana, he's talking to Maitreya, the abode of the Lord is very difficult to attain. It can be attained only by pure devotional service, which alone pleases the most affectionate, merciful Lord. Dhruva Maharaj achieved this position even in one life, and he was very wise and conscientious. Why then was he not pleased? So here we would think that now that Dhruva has seen the Lord and he's got the benediction of a eternal planet, which is actually part of the Vaikuntha Lokas, but manifested here in this world, the topmost planet in this world. Why was he dissatisfied? And the Prabhupada says, this important verse has been discussed by many stalwart commentators. But he does not list who the stalwart commentators are here, but he just makes that point. But elsewhere, and in other research, we find that the stalwart commentators on this verse are Jiva Goswami, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. They all comment on this verse. And what are they saying? As a synopsis. That Dhruva Maharaj was despondent because he was ashamed of his pettiness, of his petty demand for a planet greater than his grandfather's, and still, while engaging in a devotional process, holding on to a revengeful attitude. So when the Lord appeared and he realized that Lord, he has now the diamonds instead of the broken glass, he is very, very ashamed. Remembering his original intention, he was lamenting for that. So it's also quite instructive for us in devotional service, because we are engaged in the topmost devotional service. Living in the temple, you are in the dham. I mean, I was feeling some separation after coming back from India. Like I was missing being with the devotees and being in a holy dham. And I told Swarup Prabhu, like, come stay a few days. So here I am. So it's easy for us to take it for granted that we're living here and we forget that we are in such we could also consider it to be the topmost planet in the spiritual world, right? This is a portal connecting us to the Supreme Lord, and we're living in it. But upon self-reflection, I can speak for myself. If it applies to you, then maybe you can learn from it. If it doesn't apply to you, then that's really wonderful. But in myself, we can see that although we engage in a process of devotional service, we're kind of hanging on to so many misgivings and even revengeful attitude. Because if a devotee says something to you, or you hear, you get slighted in some way, then you're thinking, what's the matter with that devotee? How can he say that about me? Right? Because we're hanging on to those anchors, even within a spiritual domain. This temple is not just a building, it's manifested from the spiritual world. Krishna is a super soul in the heart of all those devotees. Created this dham. So all of this that we're seeing is Chintamani. And we'll realize it when we lie on this floor offering our obeisances, in touch with the gems of the spiritual world. So within this environment also, how ashamed we could be when we stand in front of the Lord and think, I am in this environment, I'm engaged in the highest prose of devotional service, yet I'm maintaining my pettiness in terms of my desires, in terms of my attitudes, and so on. So Prabhupada makes reference in that purport. He says this is in Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, which is called the divine and the demoniac. And Prabhupada says this kind of mentality is asuric. I mean, it's powerful because Dhruva is involved in devotional service through his meditation. He's focusing on the Lord in his heart, and because he has these desires, it's considered asuric. In that chapter, and I cite the English here, Prabhupada translates in Bhagavad Gita, text chapter 16, text 13 to 15, the demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. Can you see it like one of Bhakti Mark Swami's plays, So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future, more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. So one may feel, okay, this is the gross materialist. Doesn't apply to me. It's a gross materialist. Right? Elsewhere, Prabhupada in Bhagavatam also say the gross materialist thinks. The devotees of the Lord come to me for my help, for my donations. So I am bigger than the Lord. The materialistic person is thinking. So, but we're not like that. We're not on that platform. Isn't it? So at university, we do a module called teaching as a reflective practice. And I'm thinking of adapting the principles to call it preaching as a reflective practice. And what we do in that module is that the teachers, the trainee teachers who I supervise as my students, they are called to examine their values, morality, and ethics as teachers in terms of how they would present themselves with students, as well as their skills and their knowledge. So they are asked to reflect on what they look at as good qualities in themselves and what are their weaknesses, and build on what is good and work on what is weak. Right? So it looks like it could be preaching as a reflective practice. Could be a good seminar for ourselves, because then we can also analyze what is the alignment between our own preaching and our own practice. This is a very, very important aspect of our impact. Purity is the force. So when I was in Mayapur and in Vrindavan, 80 to 100,000 people a day going through there. Once before, I was also reflecting on this while I was walking amongst the crowd, that perhaps, who knows which great acharyas from our past or demigods have descended to walk on those grounds, the sacred grounds of Mayapur, as ordinary citizens, and look upon us perhaps and think about our frailties. Maybe smile at us, our foolishness as well, walking amongst us there. So, we are in the Holy Dham. Dhruva Maharaj was practicing devotional service, but when he achieved Krishna, he was very ashamed of his revengeful attitude and his desire. We come to the movement with many desires, and in the course of our practice of devotional service, we get purified from that also. Sometimes directly we are told, and then other times we have to interact with devotees, and we may find that challenging because everybody has a different nature. And then we have to reflect, and we have to reposition ourselves, and we have to let go of some of our pettiness. Adjusting. So therefore it's very admirable. I always value the residents of the holy Dham of Sri Sri Radharanath, because you've given up so much and you are progressing on your spiritual path. But the Bhagavatam class is given so that we can all reflect upon at every minute, every time, in case we become complacent also within a spiritual institute like this. So we reflect so that we can excavate Nishingadev's claws, excavate from this heart all of those vinasa, vigna vinasa. Excavate, remove, my dear Nishingadev, remove with your nails all of these very, very deeply rooted pettiness and misgivings, which if we really deeply reflect upon within our practice of devotional service, will also make us ashamed. And we should let it go. So there are many other points that I'd like to make, but the purport was long, and we at 827 it looks like there. And I'll conclude with the nice example Prabhupada gives in the purport about King Kulashekar. And King Kulashekar also. So Dhruva Maharaj, he was given the darshan of an expansion of Krishna. We could say the Narayan form, also is described as the Garbhodakshaya form, or a specific form of Garbhodakshaya known as Prishnigarbha. So even the Alvas, they were worshippers of Krishna and Lakshmi Narayan, or even Lord Ram. And they were saints in the South India, and associated with the Rangam Kshetra, with Rangam, Sri Rangam temple. And they were just saints that were poets. The Alvas were poets, and they would wander around just composing beautiful verses. Right? So the Mukunda Mala Stotra is the garland. The stotras are the verses which are the garland describing Mukunda and the process of devotional service. So King Kulashekar, he was a king in the 9th century, and was a very powerful king also. But he gave up his kingdom eventually, all his wealth, and he became one of these wandering mendicants composing. He is such a great devotee of Vishnu. There's a story about him that once while he was listening to the narration of about Ram Leela, the kings would have their narrators and so on. So while he was listening and how Ravan kidnapped Sita, in his meditation he ordered his army to go to Lanka. In his meditation, this is how absorbed King Kulashekar was in Ram Leela. He was just listening to the Leela, and while he heard Ravan, okay, all my armies, gather your forces, let us go. That's how absorbed he was. And later also, there's always politics in kingdoms. So depending on who the brahmanas are at that particular period, giving advice to the king and so on. So there were other brahmanas who felt that King Kulashekar was giving all his attention to the Vaishnavas. And therefore they tried to trump up some stories about the Vaishnavas and so on, false charges. And to vindicate the Vaishnavas, there was a test that what would you call it? What's a collective noun for snakes? What of snakes? I don't know. So anyway, a lot of snakes, right? You know it, Rukmani? A pit of snake. Okay, right, all right, a pit of snake. So they put a lot of snakes, poisonous snakes, into a pot, and the Vaishnavas, if they would put their hand in there and they don't get bitten, then they would be proven to be supreme. So King Kulashekar, he put his hand himself. He did not let the Vaishnavas. He put his hand into that pot himself, and he came out unscathed. No, not one snake bit him. And therefore, he proved through that his commitment, his devotion, and his appreciation of the Vaishnavas. And he gave up, became a mendicant. So the point was, he did not, in the purport, Prabhupada said that King Kulashekar prayed that I do not want any position of sense gratification in this world. I simply want to engage in your service perpetually, showing the superiority of that desire as compared to Dhruva Maharaj's wish to have revenge and the greatest planet greater than his grandfather. But still underscoring the mercy and the compassion of the Supreme Lord, that although you may have these desires, as long as you engage in the process of devotional service, eventually you'll be purified of it, and the Lord will give you the benefit of your devotional service. And if the Lord sees your need and He wants to give you your desire, He will also fulfill that. So, before I even became involved with Hare Krishnas, there was an adage that I learnt. Be careful of what you ask, because you may get it. So many implications from that, because we get it, we don't know what to do with it. We get it, it may entangle us. We get it, it may cause us anxiety. If we get it, then we'll be bewildered. So many things. So even in devotional service, already it's guaranteed that you can get it if you're asking for it by this pastime. So we want to be careful what we ask, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed, na dhanam, na jhanam, na sundarim, kavitam jagat. So I do not want any material wealth, etc. So let's stop there. You can take a question or a comment, and please add to the class any of your realizations. I'd like to learn from that myself. So please say Jai Prabhu. Give Jai Prabhu the mic. Jai Sachinandan Prabhu. Sorry.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for that wonderful class. Actually last time I was going through the same. It's quite a long purport, like 300 pages. Yeah. And Vidura and Dhruva, they had one common thing, that both were subject to harsh, piercing treatment, isn't it?
Dhruva and?
Vidura.
Yeah,
Vidura, as you mentioned earlier on, he was insulted by Duryodhana, and because he was favorable to the Pandavas, who were devotees of Lord Krishna. They were like that, and we know what the repercussions were after that. With Duryodhana and the Kauravas. Vidura is also a great Vaishnava, also blasphemy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the case of Dhruva, like Prabhupada mentions, that although he had these aspirations of material, and he quotes from, like, seeming like they are like demoniac. He mentions like that, isn't it? That, but Dhruva is a child still, and I was thinking, curious to know, like, at what are children subject to karmic reactions? What is are they at a certain day not subject to karmic reactions? So in that way, the Lord, He overlooked Dhruva's being revengeful, having all these bad thoughts about his stepmother and his.
Yeah.
Later on, we know what happened. They went through some very terrible, ghastly. They met a very ghastly end. And Prabhupada mentioned that this is what happens when we offend Vaishnavas, and Dhruva was a Vaishnava somehow. Yeah. So although he had this, the point I'm making is, was he not subject to karmic reactions because he was still a young boy?
Mm.
And what age are we free from that? What is the cutoff? Like, there is some injunction like that children are not subject to at a certain age.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think also I read that, Dhruva was excused because he was a child from that, although he had his Kshatriya nature there. Yeah. But the specific injunction, I'm not aware, I'm not sure. Like, if you want a citation. Yeah. Women and children are to be excused. Yeah. Any comment? Anybody wants to respond to Jai Prabhu's statement? But that's taken, point is taken. Dhruva was a child and therefore is excused, and he did not incur his karma. I think the responding to the principle.
Hare Krishna. I was just thinking while Jai Prabhu was talking that although these two personalities were insulted, but some positivity came of it, you know. So even us as practicing devotees, when we are insulted and, you know, rebuked in certain ways, we can take it in a positive light and improve ourselves, and, you know, reflect on it and try to make changes in our own lives to improve and advance in Krishna consciousness.
So to respond to that also is if we say that when we are insulted, it means you're identifying it as an insult. So at some stage we only have to overcome that too. That we don't identify it as an insult. We should take the arrows of Krishna like Bhishma, like flowers, right? But meaning we are already categorizing what is antagonistic and what is not. So if somebody insults you, say, I feel insulted. So already we are positioning ourselves in a certain way. But eventually, we'd have to look at that in an equipoised way as well. Ganga Mata.
Thank you, Smita Krishna Prabhu. You were mentioning that Krishna fulfills what the devotee desires, so we have to be careful as well what we ask the Lord for, what we approach the Lord for. But obviously devotees a little more surrendered won't actually explicitly ask the Lord for anything, though he may still have desires in his heart, and still those desires probably would be fulfilled. But also, isn't it that Krishna doesn't necessarily fulfill those desires if he sees that it may entangle you more, because he wants to protect you?
Yeah, that's true. When you are sincerely on the path, some of these desires will become obstacles. Krishna knows that. So it doesn't necessarily give you what you want, but what you need. So sometimes, I mean, we have seen devotees also who hanker for certain things, improvement in their material situations, their health, so many things. Krishna doesn't necessarily award that within visible time also, you know. Krishna's 1 second is what? 12 years or more, something. So it's he'll respond in his time, and in terms of our time, we are impatient. But the point is here, you are right. May not necessarily award that to help and protect the devotee. And what is that verse, Swarup? Yasyaham anugram harish tad tanam shanei. Yeah, thank you. So that when the devotee has become bereft of everything, his friends, his family, his wealth, his health, everything, then it says, the poor fool has nobody else but to turn to me. And that's when all our desires have not been awarded, and eventually we just rely only on Krishna, fully surrendered. Yasyaham anugrami harishyata dhanam shanei. To make him more surrendered. I remove all of this, his wealth, everything. I take it away. That's why materialistic people, they don't like to worship Krishna. Oh, Harishyata Dhanam Shanel. Take away everything. Let me worship Lord Shiva. Get some benediction. Right? So, correct. Ravindra's Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
One of the scriptures it mentioned that if people desire for material things, they pray to Lord Shiva. But not knowing that boon is coming from Krishna himself, giving to Lord Shiva, and then from there it's giving it to whoever wants material desires and stuff like that. So
the system of prayer in the Vedas is very user-friendly. According to the desires of different persons, they worship according to their natures and desires. So particular demigods are in position to enable people to receive the benefits of their desire. Krishna says he makes their faith strong in the demigods. Right, but the Vedic system is created in such a way that the ultimate beneficiary of all, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, the ultimate beneficiary is Vishnu. So even if they engage in fruitive activity, etc., over time, over lifetimes even, because they're always offering the ultimate beneficiary Vishnu, they will get enough sukriti to come to the point of worshipping Krishna. Right? So Lord Shiva is very, very beneficent. He's benevolent, and he gives people the desires they want, because he's the Lord and Master of the material nature. So those who want those material things, they are under the control of the material nature. Lord Shiva is the boss. He'll award. Right?